So the Premier League is about to commence in just under 2 weeks, and I feel like it is now perfectly the time to start talking about the Premier League title race coming into the next season. We've got a lot of teams that have been strengthening in the transfer window, a lot of money which is being thrown around. There's usually a lot of money that's thrown around in summer windows, but this window has been absolutely mental at times with some of the sums that we've seen for players flying about in the Premier League. But I'm really excited about this Premier League title race because I think for the first time in some time we can genuinely add a fourth team to the pack in terms of teams that could compete for the Premier League title next season. And those four teams, in my opinion, are Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City, and Chelsea. And I know some people might say Chelsea aren't in that pack, but I personally think that they have an outside chance, and I think we should give them the respect that they deserve for winning the Club World Cup last season. So ultimately, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through each four of these teams. I'm going to go from back to front in terms of who I think is the most likely to go and win the Premier League. And I'm going to talk about their chances, the reasons why I think they're in the Premier League title race next season, and also the things that I think could hamper them in the Premier League title race next season. And I'm going to start off with the least likely team to win the Premier League out of these four teams, Chelsea. And I know some people might laugh at me putting Chelsea in a genuine title race next season. I'm not saying they will be in the title race. I'm just saying that I think we should give them the respect they deserve in terms of potentially being in the title race last season. You look back to last season, Enzo Maresca's first season at Chelsea. They were in the title race up until around the Christmas period, right? They were in it, and then they fell off of a cliff going into the second half of the season. But they were genuinely up there in the title race going into that stage of the season. I feel like we should give them, after they've gone and won the Club World Cup, after they've brought in a couple of new signings, had a decent summer, I think that we can start talking about them being a potential team to go and win the Premier League next season. Now, what are the reasons why I think that Chelsea can win the Premier League next season? But the reason why is I think that they are a couple of signings away from being a genuine title contender, like a team that is absolutely up there with Liverpool, Arsenal, and City going for the Premier League. Then they're a couple signings away, but doesn't mean they can't do it next season even without those signings. And obviously, we've still got a bit of the transfer window left. I think they need a new goalkeeper. I think they need a new centre-half. Apart from that, I think that the squad that they have there is good enough to go and win a Premier League title outside of those two players. And the reason why I think Chelsea do have a chance is because of one specific player in this Chelsea team, which is good enough to be able to drag them to a Premier League title. Cole Palmer. He is good enough. The heart of this Chelsea team, assisting goals, scoring goals. He went in a dry spell last season for the second half of the season, and that's ultimately why Chelsea fell off of a cliff, because they do rely on Cole Palmer quite a lot. If they can add attacking firepower around Cole Palmer and players that can score goals and help Cole Palmer out, I think that they will score enough goals to be able to compete next season. Cole Palmer guarantees you a certain level of goals and assists in a Premier League season. And then obviously you've got other players like Neto, you've got other players like they've just signed Gittins as well, Delap, Jackson if he stays, and then obviously as well the new signing João Pedro. They've got enough players in that attacking area of the pitch to be able to score enough goals to go and win a Premier League. Now, are they absolutely of the quality to be able to go and win the Premier League? Are they of the quality of the other teams that I'm talking about in this video? I would say probably just short. Now, it does look like they potentially could be getting Xavi Simons. And if they get Xavi Simons, I'm telling you, that is a massive upgrade off of either the left-hand side, probably the left-hand side for them. That would be a big statement signing, and I think that it's likely to happen. And if it does happen, that massively boosts their chances of being in the competition for the Premier League next season. But when you look at their midfield as well, this is an area of their team which I think is a little bit underrated. They've got Latvia in there, who's been injured over the last couple of seasons, but if he can put a full season together, people are going to realise just how good this boy is. He is a very, very good footballer. He can dominate matches of football in the midfield. Him alongside someone like Caicedo is a disgusting midfield. And then you've got the depth also of Enzo Fernandez, who can play deeper. He can also go into that cam position if maybe you want to put Cole Palmer on the right-hand side. He has proven himself as a good enough player to make late runs into the box and score goals as well last season. So Enzo Fernandez can absolutely do that role as well and contribute in the final third. But they've also got a player called Andre Santos, who had a really good season in Liga last season, and he's going to be in this Chelsea squad next season. So the depth that they have in the midfield is really, really impressive. And also don't forget that they do have that very young, talented player off the right-hand side called Esteval. Now, we've not seen him at top-level football. We've seen him a little bit in the Club World Cup. He looks very talented. But obviously, there's no way we can guarantee that that is going to translate to Premier League level. But he is a player to absolutely keep your eyes on for next season who could light up the Premier League. But for me, the big issue with Chelsea is always defensively. Reece James, not got a problem with him at right back. Absolutely phenomenal player. They've got Malo Gusto, who's a good enough backup for him as well. So right back is a position I don't think is an issue. Left back as well, don't think is an issue. Hato they've just signed, who's a really good player. Also Cucurella they've got in that position. So they're stacked in left back and right back, and then they're absolutely fine there. Centre-back, I think they're a little bit inexperienced in. They've got a lot of young, talented centre-backs. They've got Chalobah, who's a little bit older than the rest of the pack, but you've got Levi Colwill. You've got, of course, Fofana, who's barely been playing in recent seasons, but he's still relatively young, specifically in experience as well. Hato can obviously also play in that centre-back role. So they've got a lot of talented centre-backs, but do they have a real leader, a real one of those Premier League level leaders that's going to lead you to a Premier League title? I'm not so sure. I think they probably lack that area of the team specifically. And at goalkeeper as well, I think that they probably lack a real good goalkeeper. Robert Sanchez is not good enough, in my opinion. I would also say that if I was Chelsea right now, I'd be looking for Gigi Donnarumma with the situation at PSG. I mean, he is the obvious one. If they go and get Gigi Donnarumma, I think that they could be a serious team for the Premier League next season. But I do think that this Chelsea team rely on signings. I do think that they need to make a couple more signings. If they can get Xabi Simons across the line, that's going to add a massive amount of creativity and goals into the Chelsea side. And I think that him and Cole Palmer, alongside obviously, Jackson, João Pedro, Pedro Neto, Esteval, I think those players could definitely score enough goals alongside those two players in there. So if they get that Simmons deal across the line, I think Chelsea are a real threat next season, attacking wise. I just think they need to shore up a little bit defensively if they do want to guarantee themselves to be in the Premier League title race next season. But moving on to the team which I think is the third most likely to win the Premier League this season, and it is Arsenal. Now, I think that they are considerably more likely to win the Premier League than Chelsea because of the fact that they've been competing for so many years, and also because they have made some really good additions in this transfer market, which I actually think is going to revolutionize the way in which Arsenal can play this season. Obviously, last season, they became a very tough side to watch at times. They used to be a team that was a really good football team. They used to play lovely football, score some brilliant goals. Last season, we saw a different type of Arsenal, but I think that this season, we're going to be seeing a better Arsenal team to watch on the eye. And the reason why is specifically because of the signing of Zubimendi, because I think that he is going to be able to get Arsenal ticking in the midfield. Obviously, when Jorginho was playing in there, obviously before last season, where I just don't think he physically could compete at Premier League level anymore, Jorginho ran games from the midfield. He progressed the ball forward very well in that midfield for them. And without him in there, Declan Rice just could not do that same job. And I personally think with a midfield of Zubimendi and Rice next season, they are going to be able to progress the ball forward and also have Rice as that kind of sweeper in the midfield doing the defensive work and also, crashing the box, doing that side of the game as well. So I think it's going to revolutionize the way that Arsenal play football next season. And obviously, another massive piece of the puzzle in which they finally solved this window was the striker role. It's been talked about for a long period of time now that Arsenal need a centre forward to be able to compete with Manchester City, with Liverpool, because obviously Liverpool have someone like Salah. Manchester City have someone like Haaland who's going to guarantee a certain amount of goals every single season. Arsenal have never really had that. They've had a lot of people chipping in with goals here, there, and everywhere, but they've never had an out-and-out goal scorer. They finally have that out-and-out goal scorer with the signing of Victor Gyökeres. I mean, he is a real top centre forward. We've seen his numbers for Sporting Lisbon, and some people will say he's not going to translate to the Premier League. I just don't think that there's any chance that he's not going to translate at least to a good level at Premier League, because when you look at the way he performed in the Champions League specifically, but also, the numbers he was putting up in Liga NOS, they are just numbers that you can't turn your nose up at. But ultimately, when you go through the Arsenal team at the moment, pretty much every area of their squad is pretty strong. You look at Kepa Arrizabalaga as the backup to David Raya in goal. I think there's two solid goalkeepers there. Kepa proved that he's good enough for Premier League level at Bournemouth last season. And then at the right back position, you've got White, who obviously a couple of seasons ago had a real good season for Arsenal there. And also Jurrien Timber, who was phenomenal for them in that right back role last season. Then you go to the centre back roles. You've obviously got Gabriel and Saliba. Those two are the starting centre-backs. Absolutely an unbelievable centre-back pairing. But behind that as well, you've got Calafiori, White, Timber, who can all play in that role as well. So, and of course as well, Mosquera, who they've just signed as well from Valencia. So they've got a lot of centre-back options as well if Gabriel or Saliba was to get injured. Then in the left-back role, I still think that they're relatively solid in that area. Obviously, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori, they're not natural left-backs, but I still think that they can do a good enough job. Miles Lewis-Skelly showed us that last season that he is able to play in that left-back role to a high standard, and Calafiori as well is very good going forward and can add a lot to this Arsenal side. But then moving into the midfield, which I did previously just touch on before, obviously Zubimendi and Rice, I believe that they will revolutionize the way that Arsenal can play next season. The question I have is, if you lose Zubimendi through injury, who comes in and can replace that in the midfield? And I don't think there is anyone. That's the only small criticism I would have of Arsenal's midfield depth in that area. But obviously, they've just signed Christian Norgard, who's a very good player. He's been a very good player for Brentford for some years now. And I do think that he is a little bit of an underrated signing because, you know, they got him for a small amount of money from Brentford. But I do think it's a solid signing. And on top of it as well, obviously, they've got Mikel Merino who can play in there. I just don't think any of them have the technical ability to play the ball forward like Zubimendi. So that could be an issue for them in that position. Attacking midfield is probably another area which I would maybe question the depth in a little bit. Obviously, they've got Martin Ødegaard, who didn't have the greatest season last season. He has to go and prove himself this season. But behind him in that role, I'm not fully convinced. Obviously, they've got Nyanweri, who can kind of operate in that position. You've also got Havertz as well, but are they, good enough replacements for Ødegaard? I just don't see them as creative replacements in that attacking 10 role. I could be wrong. But yeah, that's maybe another small criticism I would have of this Arsenal team at the moment. Off the right-hand side, they've now got plenty of depth there. After the signing of Madueke, they've got obviously Saka, who's going to start there, and also Nyanweri can play there too. In the striker position, obviously, as I've just said before, they've signed Gyökeres, a really good signing for them. They've got replacements if he was to get injured. If Jesus stays, Kai Havertz as well. Even Merino, who's proven himself as a decent centre-forward replacement option if it's necessary next season. So they've got, I think, enough depth in that striker role to be able to support Gyökeres if he was to get injured. The left-hand side is the big issue with this Arsenal team at the moment, I would say. Martinelli has proven over the last couple of seasons he's just not progressed like some people thought he was going to. This season is do or die for him at Arsenal, in my opinion. I just think that if he doesn't prove himself this season to be a player that can put up the numbers that he did a couple of seasons ago, I think Arsenal will move on from him. And to be honest, I think that they probably should move on from him. There's been a lot of talk of Eberechi Eze. If they get that one across the line, I think Arsenal are a force to be reckoned with next season. But obviously, it remains to be seen whether they will get that deal done. So I would say the left-hand side is an issue. The midfield a little bit, I think depth-wise, Zubimendi replacement, Ødegaard replacement, but they're not huge issues. But I think overall, this Arsenal squad is a very good squad, and they have a very good chance of going and winning the Premier League next season. I just think that they're a little bit, just a smidge behind Liverpool and City, in my opinion, but I think they're right up there, and absolutely, they can win the Premier League this season. And then coming in as my second most likely team to win the Premier League this season, I'm going to go with Liverpool personally. Some people would go with Manchester City behind Liverpool. That's absolutely fine. I respect, your opinion. I think the margins are very close between all three of these sides, to be honest. Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool. So you can kind of split them whichever way you want. For me, the reason why I've gone with Liverpool in second is, first of all, their key players in the squad are beginning to age. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to age overnight. Van Dijk and Salah are the two that I'm specifically looking at. Van Dijk is obviously, I think he's 34 now. Salah's 33. They absolutely could just truck along this season and be absolutely as fine as they were previous seasons before. But I do think it has to be considered at some point these two are going to slow down. Van Dijk's obviously had a massive ACL injury that could catch up to him. We do not know. But more than anything, I wouldn't even say that that's the main reason why I've put Liverpool down here, because those are two world-class players. They absolutely could turn up the season and be just as good as they were in the season before. I'm not saying that that is the case, that they're going to slow down. But for me personally, when I look at this Liverpool side, I think that they lack a little bit of depth in key areas, specifically behind those two players as well, Van Dijk and Salah. And if there were to be an injury to one of those two main players, I think they'd struggle to recover from it. And let's go through the squad real quick, because you've got obviously in goal, Alisson, Mamardashvili, two of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. Unbelievable quality. I know Alisson's had a couple of injuries, but to have Mamardashvili as a player that can step in for him, unbelievable. Right back, you've got Frimpong and you've got Connor Bradley. I think they're two good enough options. You've got Joe Gomez, who can fill out there if those two were to be injured. Centre-back, though, is the big issue for me. Virgil van Dijk and Konate are the two starting centre-backs. Behind that, there's Joe Gomez. Other than that, it's academy options. Now, there has been a little bit of rumours about Liverpool signing Mark Guehi, but obviously Liverpool also rumoured to be going for a 150 million target Alexander Isak at the moment. You can't get Isak and Guehi in the same window with the amount that they've already spent. So the question for me is, are Liverpool going to recruit in that centre-back area? Because I think if they do not, they've put themselves in a real vulnerable position for next season. Because if Van Dijk or Konate gets injured, I think they've got problems at the heart of their defense. So that is an area which I'm looking at this Liverpool team at the moment, and I'm saying you could get exposed across the full season if you do not recruit in the centre-back position. Left-back, I think they're absolutely fine. They've got Kirkez, who just signed, had a phenomenal season for Bournemouth last season. Robertson, obviously, who played in that left-back position last season, he'll still be there. And then, obviously, going into the midfield, you've got a double pivot of McAllister and Gravenberch. Two unbelievable players. They helped Liverpool win the Premier League last season. However, I think that Liverpool last season got away with McAllister and Gravenberch being fit all season. If McAllister and Gravenberch got an injury for a sustained period of time, the depth once again in the holding midfield position, I think is an issue for Liverpool. I think that if you're losing one of them, you're going to have to bring in Endo. I don't know if he's the best option over 10-15 games, say one of them was to get injured for that amount of time. And then on top of that as well, you're looking at Bajcetic, you're looking at Tyler Morton to come in and replace. I don't think they're of the quality to replace one of Gravenberch or McAllister if they were unfortunate to get injured. So I think that that is a real issue squad depth-wise, again, for Liverpool. In the attacking midfield position, I think they're absolutely stacked. They've got Wirtz, Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones can play in there. So I think they're absolutely stacked in the attacking midfield position. As I previously said as well about the right-hand side, behind Mohamed Salah, if he was unfortunate enough to pick up an injury, I don't think there's much behind him. You've got Chiesa, who can play in there. I don't even know if he's going to stay at the club by the end of the transfer window. I think that's a little bit up in the air. But behind him, you've got Doak, Harvey Elliott. They aren't options, in my opinion, good enough to replace Salah if he was injured for a decent amount of time. So I think that they'd have issues in that side of the pitch as well if there was injuries throughout the season. Up front, Ekitike, really, really good signing. I think that, he might take a little bit of time to get going, but he is going to be a good signing. Darwin Nunez probably looks off, so he's not going to be considered in my kind of thinking for that striker role. Other than Ekitike, you've got Cody Gakpo who can play in there at the striker role as well. Off of the left-hand side, you've got Cody Gakpo, obviously, who's the main choice after Luis Diaz has left off of that left-hand side. But also, you've got a lot of players who can play off of the left-hand side. You've got Szoboszlai, you've got Wirtz. So you've got players who can play off the left-hand side, and you can kind of spread those attacking options across the front line, even if there were injuries. So I think outside of the right-hand side, I don't think there's too much of a concern for Liverpool in the attacking areas. Obviously, if Salah was to get injured, I'm talking about. But I think Liverpool are in an incredible position. They've got a real good first 11. Probably the best first 11 in the side, potentially, in the league, potentially other than Manchester City. My question for them is squad depth in key positions. If they were to pick up injuries in specific areas of the pitch, I think that it could hurt their chances of winning a Premier League title next season. And the reason why I know this is because I saw Rodri get injured last season and the impact that that had on Manchester City. So I do think that the squad depth issue is something that should concern Liverpool fans a little bit. But ultimately, they have a phenomenal squad, especially if they get Isak over the line. They are going to be in a great position to go and win the Premier League next season. They've just got to rely on a few players to stay fit across the season, in my opinion. And then finally, for the team I think is the most likely to win the Premier League next season, Manchester City. And I know some people will say not, and I absolutely respect the reasons why some people might argue that Manchester City might not go and win the Premier League next season. I just look at not only the squad, but also Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola is the best manager in the Premier League. I don't think anyone can argue that one. And when I go through this Manchester City squad, I think that there's very few areas of this team that have deficiencies at the moment. I think with the business that's been done in the summer, I think Manchester City have kind of plugged a lot of the gaps in which were previously in this Manchester City side last season. And I think that we've massively reduced the age profile of the team as well, which I think was an issue last season. I think Manchester City's biggest issue between now and the beginning of the season is getting rid of a lot of these older players, a lot of the players that need to be offloaded. I don't think Manchester City have done a good job of offloading players, but the incomings, I think, have actually been a little bit underrated. I think some people are underrating the incomings a little bit because there's not been as much money spent as what Liverpool spent, for example. But let's go through the squad real quick. Obviously, in goal, you've got Ederson, you've got Trafford. I think that they're two really good options for the goalkeeper position, especially obviously with Ederson's injury record. Trafford can come in and he's going to do a good job, I think. And then in the right back position, I think that this is the only real area of concern for Manchester City at the moment, maybe outside of another position, which I'll briefly touch on. But right back is the only area which I look at and go, you probably could improve that area of the team. Matheus Nunes obviously plays there last season. He probably would be the first player you'd think of starting in that position coming into the new season. He's very attacking. He's not defensively as switched on as what you would want a title-winning right back to be. You've got Akanji who can play there, Kasanov who can play there. So you've got Rico Lewis who can play there in possession-orientated games. So I think that there's enough options you've got to play in that right back role. I just personally think that we could get a natural right back in that role who maybe can fit the attacking side and the defensive side of the game a little bit more. So I think that that's probably an area of weakness in the Manchester City side. Centre backs, I think, is relatively okay. I don't think that there's any issues. I think maybe if we were to get a couple of injuries, which with the injury record of some of our centre backs could be a little bit of a concern coming into the new season. Obviously, we've got Diaz, Gvardiol, John Stones, Akanji, we've got Kasanov, we've got Vitor Reis as well, who will probably go out on loan if we're being completely honest. And we've got Nathan Ake as well. But the injury record of a lot of those players is a little bit concerning. But overall, I think that there's enough options. I think we've got about 6 options there, excluding Vitor Reis. That should be enough options for a centre-back position. So I'm not overly concerned. My only question is, do we have the same level of quality in those centre-back roles as Liverpool and Arsenal? And we probably don't have the same level of quality if Diaz is going to continue his form and John Stones is going to continue his injury record. I think that there might be an issue there with that side of with the centre-back roles. But it could also not be an issue going to the new season. It just depends on how fit our players stay throughout the season. But I do think we've got enough options at the centre-back role. In the left-back position, I think I'm relatively comfortable now. We've got an attacking option. We've got defensive options. We've got, obviously, Ait Nouri, who we've just signed. A really exciting left-back option who's going to obviously get forward and contribute to the attacking side of the game, who's decent defensively. But we've also got defensive options there as well. We've got Ake as well, who can play there. Hopefully, he can stay fit for the season. He could be a real important player, just, acting as more of a defensive left-back in some games. Also, Gvardiol can play out in that left-back position. Nico O'Reilly can also play there. He played there a decent amount last season, impressed from that position. So I think left-back is relatively well covered. And then into the midfield, I think that this is the area of the team where we are just absolutely stacked. I mean, it's ridiculous. We've got Rodri, Reinders, Nico Gonzalez, Bernardo Silva, Ilkay Gundogan still at the club. I think I'm even missing one. But we have so many good options. Oh yeah, Mateo Kovacic. We have so many good options at the base of the midfield. We probably need to get rid of at least one of them. Ilkay Gundogan is probably the one I get rid of. But so many good options in the midfield. I think that we are absolutely stacked there. So I see no issues whatsoever with the central midfield. Attacking midfield, we've got Shirky, we've got Foden, Echeverri, if he stays as well, can play in there. So I think there's plenty of players who are very talented who can operate in that attacking midfield space. Off the right-hand side, we are absolutely stacked. Once again, we've got Foden, we've got Shirky, we've got Oscar Bob, we've got Savinho, Doku can play off the right-hand side. So there's plenty of really good options. McAtee also is another player who's still in the squad at the moment. He might go before the end of the window. But again, we are absolutely stacked off of that right-hand side. Then off the left-hand side, we've got Jeremy Doku, Marmoush. We've got Savinho who can play there. Grealish is still at the club, but he will most likely leave the club. So we've got a lot of options off the left-hand side as well, and quality options. Marmoush has proven himself, in my opinion, to be one of the best players actually in the Premier League at the moment. I think you could put him in a top 10, 15 of the Premier League because what he showed in the final, half of the season was absolutely outstanding. And then up front, we've obviously got Haaland and Marmoush. And I think maybe that's another area of the squad where we could be a little bit light. We don't have a kind of backup centre forward. If Haaland and Marmoush were unfortunate to be both injured at the same period of the season, we wouldn't have a striker. So that maybe is the only other area of the squad which could be weak. But overall, I think Manchester City have a really, really good, young, exciting, hungry squad going into the next season. I'm really excited actually to see Manchester City because I think that it's going to be a completely new playing style as well. I think there's going to be a lot more energy pressing as well. But ultimately, I think that this Premier League title race is completely open. Obviously, I've given my kind of preferences in this video in terms of the order of who I think is most likely to win the Premier League, but that doesn't mean any one of these teams can't win the Premier League next season. I think it is very open. I think Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal are very, very close in terms of who could win the Premier League. And I think Chelsea are maybe more of an outside shot, but I want to give them that outside shot chance in this video as well. So let me know what you guys think coming into the new season. I think we've got a very exciting title race on our hands here. A lot of new signings for each of these clubs, a lot of new attacking signings as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how those players fit into the new systems. Let me know in the comments below who you think is going to win the Premier League. Actually, you know what? Do me one better. Put in the comments below your predictions of these four clubs on who is the most likely to win the Premier League. Not where they're going to finish in the league, but just the most likely to win the Premier League out of these four clubs. Put them in order in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video. If you do enjoy this type of content, make sure you hit the like button to boost the content in the algorithms and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.